season, when we had Alula, which I'm not sure if you watched the first couple of stages, but stage one was it was it's the first big sprint stage, and it was a pretty sketchy one as well, going around U-turns and um, yeah. I wonder, did you catch any of the Alula tour and see any of the sprints?
Yeah, no, I did. I did. I watched them. I watched them all actually. So with great interest. And yeah, that first day was like five across the road, throwing for the
Yeah,
line.
the
And then
U-turns, like the sandy
yeah,
U-turns. Jeez.
yeah, a bit of sketch in there for sure. I mean, it's a funny thing though, like having done hundreds of them myself, sprints, it's like you don't actually think about that obviously while you're racing, but then when you finish the race and you're sitting on the bus that's when you go, mate, how sketchy was that freaking U-turn? What about the sand on the inside? You always talk about it
Oh,
afterwards, but obviously you're so concentrated and like you don't
yeah.
even think about it at the time. And then yeah, I mean everyone it part of bike racing in the in the desert, I think.
That's and I reckon it shows, particularly those like the lead out, the last three men, the sprinter themselves. It shows their skill. This is the top echelon of the sport, and in their skill to the way they're riding, it's really pretty choppy in those first couple of stages. Everyone's nervous and everyone's fresh too, and there's
Yeah.
wind and the roads are rough, like there's punches everywhere. Like it just shows their skill to ride and and take contact and not go down. And like that stage one I think it was Merlier. He had the bike change like after the U-turn, and how clean was it too?
It comes from his cyclocross background, doesn't it?
Oh, that was like I think his teammate like just flung him the bike and then full CX remount. So
Yeah.
no, that was impressive. But that first sprint, Casper de Uden, I think
Yeah,
the bloke
Jasper
from
Van
Pithie.
Uden. Yeah.
Strong sprint,
Mm.
but yeah, I think for the whole tour, Merlier kind of got a chance to show how fast he was, and I think like it's easy to forget about Merlier last year. I mean, I'm not sure if he did a grand tour, but with the rise of Philipsen and everyone else in there, Coy, it's easy to forget about him, but he's still there.
Yeah, look, I think in my opinion, when I was watching the first day, it was like, I was looking for wind. I was looking, what side's going to be your protected side on the, because when Casper went, he went straight down the middle.
Mm.
They bossed the lead out, actually. It was very nice.
Yeah, they did.
And, and it just looked like there was no significant wind. And often when that's the situation, it's like riding in an indoor velodrome. It feels like it's a headwind the whole time. So when there's no wind, you're punching a hole in the wind at 70k an hour. So it feels like you've got a bit of headwind anyway. And that's
Mm.
why they'll come across the road like that. I think if you went and looked at the next couple of sprints that Merlier won, it was coming off a really hard section of racing.
Yeah.
Either they'd been crosswind, I'd been on the gas, the chain had been tight the
Mm.
whole day.
Mm.
And I think he just showed his strength there. And he's obviously very fit at the moment. He's not afraid to open early. And the first one he won was just textbook. The wind was coming hardcore from the left, and he just pinned it on the barriers on the right.
Mm.
And the great thing about doing something like that is if someone does come up beside you, they're going to start protecting you eventually from the wind because they're going to have to pass on the wind side. So you'll actually speed up again. So to actually get past on the wind side, it's almost impossible. But at that moment in time, he was a bike length clear, and everyone else had done way too much work to try and get his wheel, and he had bike lengths. But I think one thing I wanted to talk about actually, and I don't know what you think, but that first sprint where they're all across the road, and it's like that's never used to happen back in my day. But I've been thinking about it more and more, and I've seen a lot of sprints like this more and more. A lot of it now is more who times it just that little bit better, meaning coming just a little later because everyone now is so optimized. Everyone has the fastest rolling resistance tires, wheels. They all have the best skin suits, aero helmets.
Mm.
They're all in an aerodynamic sprinting position. Everyone is just optimized and
Mm.
even. So there's not a lot, if you go back to the old days, Cab versus Griepel, Cab was just so much more aero than what we could ever make Andre punching a hole in the wind. But now I think everyone's got to that point of okay, that's where we're optimized. And then you take a step back, and I was chatting with um, um, Welsford at the Tour Down Under. And I
Yeah.
said, mate, what gear were you in? Because it was huge. It was visibly, his RPM was
Oh,
visibly
especially on
slow.
that third stage. Yeah.
And he said, yeah, I put it in the biggest. He's got a 56.10, but he rode the 56.11. And I said, that's exactly what I was talking with Griepel about maybe 10 years ago. I said,
Really.
it's gonna go that way because everyone's getting so aerodynamic now. Everyone's going to
Mm.
be level playing field aerodynamic wise. The next thing is now the strongest guys are going to have to use bigger gears. It'll eliminate some of the jump, some of that initial
Yeah. The
kick,
kick. Yeah.
but the top end speed's huge. And it's if you look at track cycling, that's exactly where it's gone.
Yeah.
Track cycling.
Yeah.
They just ride
Ridiculous
these
gears.
monster booming 140-inch gears. I
Oh,
mean, they are monsters, the
yeah.
guys that ride, but I just can see road cycling going the same way. I think if you want to make that next step to go faster, you just got to absolutely be a big, strong unit like Sam is
Mm.
and push the big gear. And
Mm.
he was just never really challenged because he was just always two gears bigger than everybody else. And I really think that's what you're going to see change, maybe even this season, but definitely in the next coming a couple of seasons.
Mm. And that was interesting. What I think it was what Ryan Mullins said is someone interviewed him or just got a grab with him after the finish, and Ryan Mullins like position 3 in that Bora lead out usually, and if you haven't watched any footage of Ryan Mullins in the lead out, he's a fucking he's a bully, and he's got a good reputation of being tough. But he said that they liked what Sam could do because he could hold on to that train when they were ripping it, in the last, kilometre and a half. Obviously, Sam Bennett, maybe in his last couple of years, he just couldn't hold the wheel, or he would,
Mm.
once they were finished and Van Poppel swings off, Sam was gas. Or Sam Bennett was gas, but Welsford obviously has got that horsepower. And yeah, if you're coming off a 60k an hour lead out and you've got a 56.11 that you can push, and he was ripping it
Yeah.
too. Um, yeah, you're right. I guess they're all fairly dialed now, and that Alula sprint, especially that first one where it was bloody messy. Yeah, maybe an element of just getting that timing right, hitting your top speed at the right time, perhaps.
Correct.
Um,
Absolutely. And hold, if you hit it just 5 pedal strokes earlier than the next guy, you might just fade five
mm,
meters before the line. But if you can just time that perfectly, because I feel the top sprinters in a sprint like that, where there's what I was getting to, there's nothing really to contend with, meaning crosswinds or what side of the road to protect or to make it easy for yourself. And you saw, for example, Groenewegen coming fast, but
yeah, yeah,
he was protected for 100 meters of the sprint. So
yeah.
then he finally, when he had room to open, of course he's fresher, but no room. They're all
Mm,
across the line. So yeah, it's really interesting how sprinting's changed now, and I've spoken to a few of the guys where not a, not a heap of them. Like 2,000 watts, 1,800 watts doesn't necessarily guarantee you win a bunch sprint anymore. They're winning them now, and I use that word optimized because I mean booties, aero socks, tires, wheels, bikes. Skin suits, everything is just. And now you can see EF Education have got those new aero helmets. It's like
yes.
it's yeah, it's just the way the sport's going. They just aerodynamics, free speed. But once everyone's got that, then you have to start thinking, okay, how do I get the next advantage? Stronger, fitter, faster, younger.
Yeah, yeah, Youngest, right. Yeah, it's they all add up, and someone like Sam Welsford can, he might peak a 1,700 on a really good day, but he's doing it after a super tough last 5-10 minutes,
Yeah.
but also on the other side, someone like Cavendish, he's hitting like 1,400, maybe 1,400, really really fresh, but he can hold it for a long time, and he's super aero
Yeah.
and is yeah. So into lead outs, it's like I feel like lead outs, particularly the last man has been like talked about a lot more in the last 4 or 5 years. Particularly I think with Morku, maybe when Cav got back to him, and that kind of highlighted lead out role. And now Van Poppel, he's been the talk of the town the last 2 years probably. And then also, who was the Lotto? I think Belgian guy who was with Caleb for quite a long time. Jasper De Boost. He was
Jasper,
quite
yeah.
good. So that last man and the last three now seems to be the go, rather than the trains. Like say back in your career, it was really the big trains, wasn't it? But now it's more about those last three. That's critical.
Yeah, well, I would go back again to this, like for a train to ride the front at 55 k's an hour, there's every team in the world can do that now from 5 kilometers out, because that used to be really hard to do when aerodynamics wasn't the huge thing. But now it's all across the road. Every team is protecting the GC, or every starting their lead out and wanting to be part of it. They can do that first part, So it's the key now is to being really confident in your last two men, and just making sure that they have you in a position. And I always say to my riders, be at the front, but not on the front. And it's a big difference there, because you can be sitting just back one or two, still getting a ton of shelter, but looking after, making sure, always checking over your shoulder that you've got your guys behind you ready to go. And then when those meter markers come, that I can go from here to here, he can go from here to here. When they come, that's when it's full gas. And that's why those last two guys, and it's usually from about a K, isn't it? Those last two guys can take the sprinter. And it's almost, you can almost see them when they pin their ears back, maybe even before, maybe the guy at 12 or 1500 meters, you can really see, right, we can make it to the line from here. And they just go, whang, and it just goes up, and the peloton just goes,
oh, you see it, you stretch it out. Yeah.
Exactly. But it's just from that point, from so far out, 5K out, 4K, it's just, there's so many people now that can ride that speed for that long, that you just have to be a bit more patient and really trust in following the lead out, because they get messy, picking one side of the road, and the key to that is obviously you can only get past on one side of the road. You can't get swamped both sides. And ideally, if you're good enough, you can pick the side that's, you'll be protected on. If the wind's coming from the left, you want to be on the right side of the road, so that it's super easy for you to advance. But yeah, and then when it goes, those last three riders, it's to even get up beside them, that you've just burned him. The guy that and then for him to try and get in front of you, you've burnt him off. So there's no at that speed, there's no saving energy.
Yeah, and then what could also happen is, like, if say you're the train that's second to the jump, and you 1-2 men are sitting in behind the say the Bora lead out, three of yous. Now all of a sudden your last man's kind of just in the way, because like he won't be able to step off, so all he is just another bike length that your sprinter has to make up. In a way, it's almost worth them just like swinging out and at least giving them a run into the last wheel. But I also wanted to understand, in your career, Greg, you were sometimes the last sprinter as well, maybe in the Sky Days a couple of years there as well, but you were the second last man for a long time too. And what are some of the cues and the things that you're saying to your team in those final 3Ks? Like, what are the cues? Is it just all intuition? You're just saying, yep, go, or is there a few more words spoken?
Often wait, because even though they've done lead outs for so long, you really have to be really relaxed and try and cause a bit of stress around, so everyone else stresses out, even though you're quite cool and calm in that situation. And that's the best way to be, because you can trick so many people in a lead out if you try and create a bit of stress, but you're doing that on purpose. But I'd always be trying to hold back, like Lars Bach and Adam Hansen. Just wait. I'd always be saying, wait, it's too early, wait. And then you would see the corner turning to the left, and then I'm saying, stay right, like don't move, because I know I've already done the research that we're going to turn back to the right, so we need to stay on this right hand side, even though we're going the long way around this road, and it looks like we're actually not in the lead anymore. The corner will turn back to the right, boom, we're at the front again. And then it's like, then when it's time to go and we see those meter markers on the side of the road, go. And that's what it is. And everybody knew their job from that,
Mm.
how far they had to go. But it was often about, yeah, trying to cause some panic. And sometimes, you arrive too early and you're a man short. So I used to always go, yep, and that's good. And someone would look around and be a young FDJ rider, and he'd get on the front thinking, right, I'm looking after my sprinter. So he would go full go. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
brilliant. He's going to another
Beautiful.
300 meters.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
just create this sort of chaos, even though you're calm and relaxed and just chilling.
Huh.
Right. Okay. I've got 300 off him. That's all I need right now. We can go. But that was a really good point you made about, um, yeah, if you're the second to the jump, your lead out man is
Mm.
almost in the way. That was
Mm.
one of our golden rules too. Is if I used to always say down the line, if you can't get to your meter mark first, just stop because you're doing the work for someone else now, another team. Just
Mm.
stop, pull out, puts us up one length. If I can't get there, I pull out, puts Griepel on the wheel to be able to sprint. So you're absolutely spot on there. If you can't get to the front at your meter marker, just get out of the way because you're actually helping another team.
Yeah. Mm. Now with all well, at the moment, there's just such a huge crop of sprinters, and probably for a lot of the reasons that you said, they're all optimized, but there's just also seems to be quite a big pool of guys who can win top bike races. And, obviously last year, Philipsen made it sort of clear that he was the best, he's the best sprinter. But I'm interested to hear what your view is of who maybe is, because I don't think the fastest sprinter is the best sprinter, and vice versa. I feel like Philipsen isn't the fastest. He's just the fittest. I feel like he's rolling into the finishing of these races and he's just so fresh in comparison to the other sprinters that what he can do on his best day, he can do it when he's super fatigued. And maybe that's why I mean, we saw it at Roubaix. That was the killer for me. When he's rolling into the velodrome, like mental, that was the killer that showed this
Uh,
guy's got a serious engine, eh?
yeah. No, you're absolutely spot on. It's how fresh the sprinters can arrive after 200 kilometers.
Yeah.
Um, I guess one thing would be we used to joke about it, it was like Graham Brown, for example. You put him side by side with any sprinter just out in the road, out training after 30 minutes.
Mm.
He's freaking hard to beat.
Mm.
Like he can put out some power. He's super fast. He gets
Yeah.
up to speed real quick just from his track days. But then, he wouldn't win every bunch sprint that he raced because at the end of 200 Ks, 250, he wasn't the best after 200, 250
Yeah.
Ks.
Mm.
No disrespect, Brownie. Love you, mate.
Yeah, I love Brownie.
But, just that sort of example. Like, or you could just take a couple of club riders even. They can still smash out some
Yeah, off the
power.
couch. Yeah.
Yeah, off the couch, exactly. And then it's again, how fresh are you when you arrive? And grand tours were like that too, mate. Like you get 2 weeks deep into a grand tour and you're full of fatigue. It's like that's when the fitness and the experience also, I think, comes in as like it's the easiest way here that I can sift through the bunch. And I think that's why I had such a good role in leading out from my track days was I could find the front with very easily. It was one of my attributes was just finding the front. And then if I had a big gorilla tagged on the back of me, we usually got there quite easily. And then he had that ability didn't matter how fatigued he was, he could still push that big power in a
Mm.
sprint.
Mm. Yeah. That's one thing I hope to see from Welsford this year, whatever Grand Tour he ends up doing. I think he'll be a lot better than he was last year. He did go in there. Oh, actually, we had this this French speaking school. I can't remember what it's called now, but they did like a big Tour de France dinner thing with a presentation, and I built. We're talking about GC contenders, and then I did this big slide of how Welsford had a great train and he's got the speed, and I just kind of overlooked the fact that it was his first Grand Tour, and he was nowhere really in any of the sprints. He was cooked at the end. But I think this year you know, with that Grand Tour in the legs, another full season, he'll get that endurance and might be able to arrive at those sprints a bit fresher because it's night and day.
Absolutely. No, I 100% agree. Once you get that first Grand Tour in your legs, I think it changes you as a rider. It's I reckon it takes a year off your life too, though. I've done what 17, so I must be about ready to
17.
cut
Is that how many you did?
in my career. Yeah, it takes a year off your life, mate. You did right. Like he'll be fit, he'll be strong. You saw him come out at nationals just playing and having fun. He knew it's not a
Oh,
course for him, but he's
he looked
attacking. So
good.
yeah, absolutely. He's done some work. Good on him. And I just hope he can, he carries that on now because it's like it's directors and teammates and I guess negotiate. I mean, I'm sure he's negotiated for a couple of years, but they're pretty quick to forget what happens in January
Yeah.
in friggin' Australia. As soon as you go line up at the Giro, and you're like, "Well, what's going on?" Well, hang on, mate. I just won every single bike race up until now.
Yeah.
Give me a moment. But
Yeah.
no, I think you're spot on, mate. He's got a Grand Tour on his legs. He looks really happy on the back of that train. That have got confidence and belief in him. And at the moment, he's so strong. He's so powerful, mate. I remember talking about him. This is no shit. I remember talking about him. Must have been my last. Must have been like 14 or 15, and he was with the Australian national team
Yeah.
as
ARA. Was it when he was the
as a,
world scratch champ?
maybe around then.
Yeah.
Well, I was out there with Lotto, and I just said, I remember saying to the train and that, like, who we always watch, who we got to watch. Da, 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 da. I said, just be careful of this kid here. I said, he is lightning quick. He's so strong. He does like 1,700 watts seated. I
Mm.
said, if he's there at the finish, we've just got to pay attention.
Mm.
Okay, unfortunately for him, it was too early in his career, and the racing was super hard in Tour Down Under. You get the heat and the hard racing, and he wasn't actually a factor in the sprints. But I just knew way back then, if this guy gets it together, he's going to be coming rapid. And yeah, we've seen it. Like I think even last year was probably his standout or his breakout. He
Yeah.
started winning consistently last year, and then I think this year he might be the real deal. The one that can actually challenge. Like I think in a straight line, he's faster than Philipsen.
Mm.
Um, like I think Groenewegen in a straight line is faster than
So
Philipsen.
do I. Yeah.
But it's just about who arrives fresher, who arrives in a better position, and like we spoke about, the timing of the sprint.
Mm.
Who's open too early? It's. I remember I've watched so many and talking with Giacomo Nizzolo and just going, mate, if you're out of men, just look for the Colombian Gaviria, mate. He opens at 300
Yeah,
every
he
time.
does. I know.
There's your lead out. It's not rocket science, mate. Just get on him, and
Yeah.
you've got a perfect lead out. So yeah,
Yeah.
it just comes down to. I think a lot of it is timing nowadays. And yeah, they're sprinting so fast. And
Mm.
if you think about 56:11, that's for 200 meters. That's 15 pedal strokes.
Yeah.
Like it's not a lot of work. Anyone, you'll be able to get your 15 pedal. If you're in that big a gear, you'll get it. You'll make it to the finish line.
Yeah. No, for sure. I'll skip past the next topic. We sort of covered a bit of that, but I'm keen to talk about some of the New Zealand athletes. And I have to say, I'm very excited about Ali Wollaston. I mean, I can't get enough of it. I think she's a superstar in the making. I mean, she just cleaned up the Nations Cup, and against the likes of Katie Archibald as well, who really takes the piss when she's on the track. Um, Ali, yeah, very exciting athlete, and also Laurence Pithie as well, who hopefully maybe next week we'll be able to get him on here and have a chat with him. But two great talents from New Zealand, Greg, who have kind of just stepped up, or maybe just showed them. So maybe Laurence just showing himself a bit more, and I think Ali has stepped up into that sort of second tier, pushing on the first tier now.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. It's with Ali, anytime that you're putting Archibald away, you're in good condition, aren't you? And
Yeah.
I think
Oh
she took
yeah.
Gin Valenti as well, like the
Yeah.
American.
Oh, moosed him in
Like
the elimination like crazy.
that's if you. I mean, of course, nobody really knows exactly what condition they're in. We know Ali's flying, so she's got nationals coming up. She's just done Tour Down Under. We know
True.
she's in great nick.
Yeah.
But still, these girls are they're on the track. They're never bad athletes.
Mm.
They're never turning up not flying. So
Yeah.
you can't take that away from him. I think she's taken a step up too, and she's on that team, that AG.
Yeah. Sudal, Insurance Sudal.
Yeah, and so one of my old teammates, Sivas Carnarvon, his wife is like the founder of the team. But I
Natasha,
actually,
yeah.
yeah, okay, yeah. So I met Sivas in at Challenge Mallorca. They were coming for a camp. We were chatting about it, and I said, I actually said, "Oh, that Ali Wollaston, you'll be happy with the way she's riding. She's a good prospect for the Olympics." Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, but Lotte Kopecky, yeah. I think the service was already. I was like, hang on, let's
Yeah.
see. And then old Pithie, mate, I've loved that
Oh,
kid for a long time, mate. He's just a racer. He's a real racer,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
he gets stuck in, you know. And I could tell a story about we would sit in the region Wallani sprint. It's quite an uphill, draggy sprint, and we set up the sprint for Nizzolo with Zabel leading out.
Oh, nice.
And you look from up above, the camera shot up above, and there's this FDJ guy giving these ones to Nizzolo, who's on his freaking lead out,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I reckon I know who that is.
Oh, boxing on.
Just boxing on, and Pithie's there, and then Nizzolo's like, oh, who's that? I went, oh yeah, that's Laurence. Yep,
Yeah.
he won an inch. Yeah, but it's about respect. I said, oh, I guarantee he respects you. He was just racing his bike, and that's
Yeah.
just Laurence, just racing. And then, he raced well and tore down under. And I remember giving him a hard time because every time he sprints, I said, mate, put it in the big chain ring because he looks like he's on the track.
Yeah, he's got a super high cadence, hasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah,
Rev
yeah.
it. Well,
And I like,
the sprint that he won on the sprint that he won at Cadell's, that I mean the way he threaded that needle, there's only a few like that's a trait that every top end sprinter and finisher needs to be able to go, right, I'm going to try this. And he had to go through the gap, but also get the pedal stroke right, pull the front wheel in as he almost collected that front wheel. That takes guts and confidence. I love that. And bike race is probably the best way to put it.
and that I think is just instinct, like I did write to him the night before because I had a feeling he'd be up. And I wrote to him, I said, mate, just don't sprint down the barrier on this sprint because I've seen it close on that barrier so many times.
Mm,
And you can see he didn't go down the barrier. He went straight through the middle. We threaded that needle
yeah.
and then, thanked me afterwards. Like, not that I think that he thought, but
Yeah.
sometimes if that's in your brain, no, don't go down the barrier. It closes. It always closes that barrier. I remember, was it last year or the year before, Aaron Gate closed on him. I saw it one other time.
Yeah.
Closes on that. For some reason, it comes downhill super fast, and then I don't know if the barriers jut in a little bit,
Yeah, the
but it just
barriers
always
do
seems,
come in. They do.
yeah,
Because I think I
and that's
saw what
what
you said about that on Twitter
yes,
or something, and I went and watched the finish to see if the barriers did come in,
yes,
and they do. They come in about maybe a meter.
yeah, that's all it needs, because
Yeah.
then it just shuts everyone down and everyone slightly drifts. So yeah, it just not the place to go down the left-hand barrier, and that what. And again, it would have come down to he's getting fitter, he's getting stronger because he's still a kid, but he's fit and he's strong, and
Yeah.
and he's arrived fresh and just dusted them in the sprint, and
Yeah.
as I just want to go back to if you're talking about New Zealand bike, I think we're in a great spot right now for
Oh,
New Zealand
yeah, mate.
road cycling. Like he's at Corbin Strong also, like he's got
Corbin.
the potential.
The
There's
Jaco, what's her name? She was at the front as well, Cadell's. Uh, oh, another Kiwi.
we
She's like a punchy
got
climber.
oh yeah, I know who you're talking
She was
about.
at the
Yeah,
front matching Gigante when Gigante was trying to rip it on that climb. She was like, she had her on the ropes easy. Alawali.
Wiley. Why? And
Yeah,
she's new to it, man. She's new to it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then we've
Um,
got the Fisher Blacks.
oh God, yeah.
Like both of them.
Exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're in a real for a really small nation. Like we're
Hmm.
punching above our weight when you look at how actually really good they are at specific talents. Like,
Yeah.
won the time trial, or Finn nearly won bloody GC, and then Pithie, I reckon, is going to win a classic, and he can win a reduced bunch sprint. And
Mm.
Corbin, anything uphill
Yeah.
sprinting,
Yeah.
he's always there for the win. It's like, yeah, it's pretty impressive. And then, we've got the other batch coming through from Black Spoke, where the top guys there. Unfortunately, it would have been nice to develop them for another couple of years. You guys, Jackson, George Jackson, and then we've
Yes.
got,
Yeah.
he's got some talent, man. When I
Yeah.
first saw him ride Trobro Leon, he'd never ridden it in his life. He just cruised around and finished front group. I'm like, how was it, mate? And he goes, yeah, it was a bit hard, yeah. But I was like, mate, that's one of the hardest bike races you're
Yeah.
going to do. Just rolling around. Like, you've got a huge potential here, And then,
Mm.
yeah, obviously we've got the brains and the brawn of young Aaron Gate. So it would have been nice just to keep that team going for, yeah, like I said, another couple of years, develop them,
Yeah.
we've got some nice young climbers coming through. But it's one of those situations. Unfortunately, it's not the first; it won't be the last.
That's right. Yeah. And it was a good foundation anyway, I think. Held a
Yeah,
good place for the Kiwi athletes for quite a while. So, God, he's just getting so much momentum too. A real shame.
yeah, real
But
shame.
yeah. Well, last couple of questions. Can you share any stories about your career, Hendo? Maybe, maybe from the days in I don't know, maybe a really tough day out on the bike that you can remember, and maybe like a really good team moment that comes to mind.
Yeah, yeah, I can do that quite easily. I could be here all day. Uh, I think the worst day, that the story I always tell is, we had to climb Colombier, and I was in trouble right from the beginning. I don't know whether I hadn't recovered well from the day before, or for whatever reason,
Yeah.
I was shot straight out the back quite early,
Oh,
and I was in trouble. I was behind Gruppetto, well behind Gruppetto, and then I could just see them in the distance cresting, and I descended like a madman. Like, I just took risks that were just, I had to. I was out of the tour, and I just got back into Gruppetto, and we still had to go up Pay Your Sword, and we
oh,
did other climbs, and up the Pay Your Sword, descend that. It's the one that Freemy won
yeah,
down doing that.
yeah. On
Yeah,
there, the iconic, yeah.
yeah. Meanwhile, I'm having the worst day of my life, but I couldn't stop cramping, mate. I couldn't stop cramping. So that leads me to believe now that I was just so dehydrated,
Yeah.
because it was blazing hot. And so what I was doing was, my heart rate was through the roof, and I was only doing 280 watts, but I was probably doing 180 heart. I was just blowing. So I said, Griepel, I'm in big trouble, mate. I'm seriously. And he goes, oh, I was just white. He goes, I've never seen you like this before. He goes, quick, one sprint, come back to Gruppetto. I said, I can't. I can't. He goes, you have to sprint. So I sprint to the Gruppetto, to the back of it. He goes, no, you have to come to the middle, because the commissaires were watching. So we go to the middle of Gruppetto, and then he comes up beside me with his strong elbows. He goes, make your arms tight. So I put my arms tight, and we hooked like that, and he's pushing me up the climb, but not pushing me. He's elbowing me up the climb.
And in the middle of the pillow, so
It's
you
like,
can't see. Yeah. Or
they
graffiti.
couldn't see. And then he wasn't taking his hands off the handlebars to push me, but he just knew I was in so much trouble. And then I got to the top of the Pay Sword with some help, and I remember it was Tyler Farrar, and I was like this, mate. And my stomach had just started rejecting everything
Oh
as well.
no. Yeah.
And I said to Tyler, mate, is it all downhill home? Like, seriously? And he goes, yeah, it's downhill to the finish. No, I said, no. I'm serious. Is it downhill? Nothing, but I don't have to pedal. He goes, yeah, Greg, seriously, but please go to the back, mate. You look fully cooked. Don't sit. That was probably the hardest day of my life, just to get through that
Oh,
day. I've never suffered like that on a bike. Never. It was horrible.
oh. Okay. What about team moment? A favorite team moment that comes to mind? I'm sure you've got so many, but maybe you might have some special ones with Griepel, of course. But what have you got?
Yeah, so I think the one was, it was the stage we won. I can't remember where it was into. Um and there was a huge pile up, about 3.5 Ks to go. We had the train and we were getting ready to go. And then I look behind, and it's just bike riders, and I'm like, oh, 'cause
Oh
I
shit.
just made it through,
Yeah.
and then I heard, oh, Greipel's still here, is he? But he got, you'd see the replay, and he's got one foot out, and he's up on the gutter, and he's landed it, and then it comes on the radio, Greg, we're sprinting for you, we've got to go, and this is now 3K to go, so the trains are going, and I went, no, Greipel's still here, I can get him. So I go back. I said, guys, you stay here. I'll go back and get him. We went back. I went back, found him, mate, out of every corner, because there's about 4 90-degree corners till we hit the final 1K straight.
Yeah.
With Greipel on, we were passing it, jump in, have a little rest. Pass. Then I finally got to my teammates, Jürgen Rollins and Seberg, at a K. Seberg, you're right. And I'm like this, like, I guess so. Let's go because we can't wait. And away they went. And then I remember Jürgen Rollins, he took off, and I was just, the wheel was just going like this.
Oh yeah. Oh
My God, I'm in
shit.
trouble. And then it was Lancaster came past
Oh yeah,
with
brilliant.
Gossie.
Yeah.
And I just went, Greipel, you've got to get up there. And he just went pop. And then I was just completely dead, mate. And then I just heard on the radio, Greipel wins by 4 lengths. It was like,
Yeah.
how did we do that? And the team waiting for us, and then the team still believing that Greipel can win from
Yeah.
basically jumping up on the footpath. It was just, oh mate, that was just the best feeling that I can remember. Having won a race with Greipel was just the trust that we had in him, and then the guys, the trust that they had in me to bring him back, and then they just laid it on the line. It's like, yeah, it's just it's a really nice feeling when everyone lays it on the line like that.
Oh, wicked, mate. Well, Greg, mate, thanks so much for your time, mate. It was a wicked chat. We could have gone on for fucking hours.
It's all good, mate. I appreciate that. Appreciate it. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was awesome. Well, where are you going? You're going Turkey tomorrow.
Yeah, off to Tour of Antalya. So
And
yeah, looking.
where do you find the team on Instagram? Where can we find it? What's it called?
It's Rembe, Rembe, Rembe Pro Cycling.
Remby Pro Cycling. All right, make sure everyone can give it a follow, and let's see how this let's follow it with interest.
Yeah, see how it evolves. Absolutely.
Yeah.